Hello and welcome back to another employer video. Today I have the pleasure of interviewing Alan O'Neill. So welcome Alan, thank you for coming along.
Nice pleasure.
Could you just introduce yourself and the company to us please?
Okay, I'm Director of SCU Motorsport Limited. We are developing a race series. We're focusing on changing motorsport education for the better. And we describe ourselves as the driving force behind motorsport education.
Fantastic. So, what can you tell us about your background then? How did you come about being a director of your own company? So, take us back to your sort of previous education and experience that brought you about.
I got interested in motorsport probably when I was about 7 or 8 years old, and it was one of those things where my father was a mechanic engineer. He used to work on race cars, minis, escorts, and then he got the opportunity to rebuild a historic Maserati, and he sort of prepped it, run it for a guy. And it was one of those things, he said, bring your children along. I was the only one of my kind of siblings who wanted to go. And it was just one of those things, it's a realisation moment at Silverstone. Waking up one sunny morning about 6 o'clock in the morning, seeing racing cars everywhere and thinking, this is what I want to do. After that, I just focused all my energies, my training to be an engineer. I left school, it kind of, I think most school children have that kind of not knowing where they want to go. I knew where I wanted to go, so I went off to college, did at the time a motor vehicle program, and started sending off letters to the likes of Williams, McLaren, Brabham, trying to get jobs in Formula One, thinking I was the best mechanic out there, just wanted to walk straight into a job. It doesn't work like that. There's skill sets you need to develop, experience you need to develop, and get a good understanding of sport. I've been involved in sport for probably, I'd say, 45 years, and got the opportunity to go in. I've had various kind of dealings with the motorsport sector projects, involved with the likes of Lola, Mountune, various other companies. It was always kind of associated with rather than being fully working in the sector. I was lecturing at the university down south. The kind of role was disappearing, so I had the opportunity. I started looking for jobs, and then I saw one that I just thought it was written for me. It was lecturing motorsport engineering at college level, mixture of sort of the motor vehicle elements as well as design, and so I applied for the job, got it, and you think, this is it, I've landed in Nirvana. Turns out that wasn't the case. What we found was that the qualification wasn't delivering the skills needed, it wasn't, the governance wasn't there. We know that there's colleges out there teaching what they call motorsport engineering, and they have the students working on just road cars. They never go to a race meeting, never go to work a placement with a race team, and basically they sign off a level 3 motorsport qualification, but the students, based on what they've done, will never ever get a job in motorsport. They'll go to the likes of Cosworth, Mallock, Williams, apply for a job, show a certificate, and it's just not good enough. So I found myself in front of students telling them, well, this is what you need to do to pass qualification, but this is what you do at the race circuit. One of the modules, the electrical module, has them doing fault diagnosis on electric window motors. Well, I'd probably say 99% of race cars don't have electric windows, but then it doesn't cover things like wiring in a battery isolator, wiring in high intensity rear lights, electronic activation for your fire extinguishers, and numerous other things that are mandatory requirements for a race car, and they're not taught. So I decided to leave and do something about it. It wasn't just a, this isn't good, I'm walking away from it. It's, I'm walking away and I'm going to do something. We spoke to a lot of race teams in the sector, in the motorsport sector, suppliers, and formulated a plan. We're developing a race series specifically for college. We say colleges and universities, but training organisations can be involved. We're also writing a qualification that's going to meet the requirements of the sector. We validated this. We spent 3 months research last year. So yeah, we're driving forward.
Fantastic. So, if you were to give a potential apprentice some advice, what advice would you give them as they embark on their sort of next steps?
That they need to stick at their apprenticeship and do really well. Focus on the practical side as well as the academic side. There's a lot of students who think going to university is the way to get into motorsport. What we're actually seeing a lot of universities now changing their focus so that practical engineering becomes part of the curriculum and part of what they need to succeed. What we found when we set the race series up originally, it was just going to be for colleges, and then we had universities come and say they'd like to take part because they were having students turn up who've got no practical experience, they never picked a spanner up, so they don't understand the design envelope. So they'd have students working on a CAD terminal, designing a component, think it's brilliant, CAD will allow them to produce it, but little Johnny or little Jenny who is in the pits having to fit this, adjust it, get the car ready, can't get their spanners in. So they then wanted these foundation level students to get more practical experience. There was a big drive in America to get, they call it Ed Tech, and it's more focused on the hands-on approach. So it is critical to get a combination of both.
Okay, so if you as an employer were looking for a potential apprentice, so someone who's thinking of applying for an apprenticeship route, what skills and attributes would you be looking for from that student?
That they could demonstrate practical experience, and for whatever field they were going into, that they had taken the initiative to go and get some experience. I was out, I was in racing paddocks at 9, 10 years old, looking how cars work. It's easy to find how a road car works, but when you go to a race meeting, you've seen Formula 1 cars, Le Mans cars, and they're so different from the standard road car. It's getting an understanding of the area that they want to specialise in.
So really, it's to get that practical experience by volunteering or getting involved in any way that they can.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I mean, the volunteering is a great way, particularly for motorsport. It's just, it's far more accessible than it was years ago. See, obviously with social media, with the likes of LinkedIn, it is far easier to communicate, connect. I mean, we've got a substantial interest from India. When I was 16, there was no way you'd be able to sort of communicate, like literally pick up a phone and find out the details of someone in India and talk to them. But that's what I've been this morning, talking to an education specialist who wants to take the race series to India.
Fantastic. So let's take an example where you might have a student that hasn't had that opportunity at school. For instance, where their school hasn't offered engineering as a subject area or even design and technology. What advice would you give to those types of students that really want to pursue this as a career but have not been given that opportunity because their school doesn't offer that subject?
It's a difficult one. I think it comes down to the trying to, as we said earlier, get experience outside of the mainstream curriculum, look for an engineering club, get involved. I mean, obviously around this sort of area, we've got RAF Cosford where they have introductions to engineering. And pick a spanner, get a set of spanners yourself, and take your dad's car apart. No, I shouldn't say that.
So, no. So we have students currently signed up for spending a week at the centre. And during that week, they're going to get experience with a range of engineering sectors. They're going to explore engineering techniques, fluid power, metrology, CNC machining, electrical, welding. Would that help give them that valuable practical experience, do you think?
Absolutely, and I think that that kind of program for someone who's thinking about engineering and their schools are not geared up for it, that would be the absolute ideal way to approach it. And I think it needs to be more of that. It's one of the things that we will be doing next year. We can offer that as we're already in discussions with UTC leads who don't have the wherewithal at the moment, but we're going to be running our own cars. We've already got a BMW that we've been racing last year that we will be out, and we can offer motorsport experience to students.
Okay, so brilliant. So one final question then. If I was looking for a job within the motorsport sector in particular, what sort of job roles are there out there? So just talk me through the typical type of role I could apply for. I imagine there's hundreds, but
I don't think it's a typical role. I mean, it really depends what area that you want to go into. I started, I wanted to be a mechanic. I wanted to be one of the guys, that you see Formula One outside the front of the garage, doing the wheel changes, setting the car up, prepping. That's what I wanted to do. I'd done it on this historic car that's worth millions of pounds, and that's great. And then I went through a sort of evolution where I wanted to be, rather than using my hands, using my brain, doing design, development, and they both complement each other. You need to have done the practical side to get involved in the kind of design side, and that's prevalent in the sport. But then you've got other areas of specialism, like the facilities you've got here, machine tools, where you're machining the components that are going to go on the race car. You've got areas like composites, where you're looking at advanced materials and lightness, strength, etc. And most of those have got kind of read across into other areas. So you might think you want to do motorsport, you do motorsport for 5-6 years, but when you're doing advanced materials, you can take it into aerospace, defence, automotive. So you've got transferable skills.
yeah. So just on that note, actually, it doesn't matter. You don't need to make a decision at this point whether you want to work in automotive or whether you want to work in aerospace. It's about having those skills that are transferable across.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lovely. Well, thank you for your time today,
Nice
Alan.
pleasure.
It was a pleasure to interview you, and thank you for coming.
No, it's a pleasure. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.